Okay, picture this. It's the 13th century, a world completely dominated by men. And right in the middle of it all, one woman in India steps up and takes the title of Sultan. And I don't mean Sultana, which is, the king's wife. No, she called herself Sultan, the king. We're talking about Razia, the first and only female ruler of the Delhi Sultanate. Her life was this incredible fight against tradition, and honestly, her story still makes us question everything we think we know about power, even all these centuries later. So the big question is, how on earth did this even happen? I mean, this wasn't just a simple matter of who's next in line, this was a full-blown revolution. Think about it. This was a time when noble women were kept hidden away, behind veils. So how did one woman not only outsmart her 11 brothers, but also rally an entire city to put her on the throne? Well, that is the amazing story we're going to get into right now. All right, here's how we're going to break down her story. We'll start with her as the Sultan's daughter, then look at her unconventional ascension. After that, we'll dive into her reign of a rebel sultan and see why it became a crown of thorns. Then we'll cover her betrayal and downfall, and finally, we'll talk about her enduring legacy. Let's jump in. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, with how she was raised. Because really, to get a handle on the queen she became, you've got to understand the king who made her, her father. So Razia's dad, Iltutmish, he wasn't your typical blue blood royal, not at all. He was actually a former slave who climbed his way all the way to the top to become sultan. And because he earned his power the hard way, he cared way more about talent and skill than he did about who your parents were. For that time, that was a pretty radical idea, and it turned out to be absolutely everything for his daughter's future. So while his sons were, well, let's just say they were busy with pleasurable activities, Iltutmish was doing something completely different. He was training his daughter to be a leader. We're talking archery, martial arts, the whole shebang. She was educated in how to run a state, how to manage an administration, and get this, when her dad had to go off on a military campaign, who did he leave in charge? Not one of his sons. Nope. He made Razia the regent, and she did such an incredible job, it literally changed the course of history. All right, so that upbringing really set the scene for her unbelievable rise. But her path to the throne, it was anything but easy. It was this massive, high-stakes fight that she didn't win by playing politics in the palace. She won it out in the streets with the support of the people. Seriously, her journey to the throne was a total roller coaster. Step 1, her own father names her as his heir, a woman. Totally shocking. But then, after he dies, the nobles are like, no way. They completely reject his choice and put her useless half-brother on the throne instead. Well, he turns out to be a disaster, and his mom, Shah Turkin, basically runs a reign of terror. The whole kingdom is falling apart. So what does Razia do? She makes a brilliant move. During Friday prayers, she goes directly to the people of Delhi, lays out all the corruption, and asks for their help. And they respond. A mob storms the palace, and boom, the army and the nobles have no choice but to back her. Her power came straight from the public. And this next point is so important. She absolutely refused to be called Sultana. Why? Because Sultana just meant the wife of a sultan. She insisted on the title Sultan, Sultan Razia. That was a huge statement. She was telling the world, I'm not a placeholder. I'm not ruling for someone else. She was the ruler, the one with the power. That one little word choice was a massive act of defiance. It was her claiming her absolute authority. So she's finally on the throne. And even though her reign only lasted about 4 years, what she did in that time was incredible. She was a visionary leader who wasn't afraid to shake things up and challenge the old guard. Right away, she proved she was more than capable. She brought law and order back to the kingdom. She got to work improving infrastructure, building roads, digging wells. She was a huge supporter of education, setting up schools and libraries. She even reformed the economy with new standardized coins. But you know what her most radical move was? She started appointing people to important jobs based on how good they were, not just because they were part of the elite Turkic nobility. This was a direct shot at their power and privilege, and they did not like it one bit. And her rebellion wasn't just happening behind closed doors in the court. Oh no, it was out there for everyone to see. She literally threw off the traditional veil, the purdah, something that was just unheard of for a woman of her status. She started wearing men's clothes, a cloak and a hat, and then she'd ride out on an elephant through the streets of Delhi, leading her own armies. She wasn't hiding. She was ruling right out in the open for all to see, exactly like a king. But As you can probably guess, this bold, in-your-face style of ruling was not going to go unanswered. It came with a huge risk. Every single thing she did to make the kingdom stronger was seen as a direct threat by the powerful men who really just wanted a puppet they could control. Her crown, it really was a crown of thorns. So here's the central conflict, what it all boils down to. On one side, you have the Turkic nobility, this powerful group called the Chahogani. They wanted a ruler they could push around, a total figurehead. They absolutely could not stand the idea of taking orders from a woman, and they especially hated that she was giving power to non-Turks. On the other side, you had Razia. She believed she was the one and only sovereign. She was creating a system based on merit, which threatened their entire world. These two sides were on a collision course, and something had to give. And the spark that finally lit the fire of rebellion? It was all about this one man, Jamal ad-Din Yaqut. Razia promoted Yaqut, who was an Abyssinian or East African slave, to a super important position, master of the stables. To the Turkic nobles, this was the final straw. They were furious. So they started spreading rumors, not just about the promotion, but whispering that Razia and Yaqut were lovers. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. It was the perfect excuse. This controversy gave them the justification they were looking for to rebel against her. And just like that, the conspiracy that had been bubbling just under the surface, well, it finally boiled over. And it led to a shockingly fast and tragic end for her incredible, revolutionary reign. Her last year, 1240, was just a complete whirlwind of chaos and betrayal. It all starts in April when a governor, Altonia, rebels. Razia personally leads her army to crush the rebellion. But then, at Tabar Hinda, rebel forces kill her loyal friend Yaqut and throw her in prison. While she's locked up, her half-brother gets put on the throne back in Delhi. But here's where it gets crazy. The rebel governor, Altonia, feels like he got a raw deal from the other nobles, so he switches sides, frees Razia, and marries her. Together, they raise a new army to take back Delhi. But in October, they're defeated. They're forced to flee, their own soldiers abandon them, and they're caught and killed. And that was it. It was over. So even though her time on the throne was cut so short, her story absolutely did not end there. In fact, her legacy has lasted so much longer than her 4 years as Sultan. You know, one of the most powerful parts of her story today is her final resting place. Her tomb, which was once a really important site of pilgrimage, is now tucked away in a pretty neglected part of Old Delhi. It's just a quiet, almost forgotten reminder of a queen who once led armies and commanded an entire empire. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. So, as we wrap this up, what are the key things to remember about Razia Sultan? Well, first, she was a true pioneer, the first and only female sultan of the Delhi Sultanate. That alone is huge. Second, she was an amazing ruler. Her short reign was filled with smart administration and economic stability. Third, she was so assertive and unconventional, right? Adopting the title Sultan, wearing men's clothes, leading armies. Fourth, and this is crucial, her downfall wasn't because she was a bad ruler. It was because powerful men couldn't handle an assertive woman being their boss. It was pure prejudice. And finally, because of all that, her story continues to be this powerful symbol of female leadership, of courage, and of fighting against the status quo. And that really brings us to the final question, the one I want to leave you with. What is Razia Sultan's greatest legacy? Is it what she actually did during her 4 years in power? Or is it the fact that her story, even 800 years later, still forces us to ask some really tough questions about power, about gender, and about how prejudice can bring down even the best and brightest leaders? Her story, you see, isn't just something that happened a long time ago. It's a conversation that we're still having right now.